So I got to unpack the story of Jairus, if that was his name. So a while back, maybe a week ago, I was reading in my daughter's Bible. And I was like, I want to read in the New Testament. And I flipped it open randomly to Mark 5. I read that with her. 20 minutes later, I was putting my other daughter down and I went in her Bible. And her Bible is a little more action comic looking. And I was like, let's keep in the New Testament. So I randomly opened up to the New Testament, Mark 5 again. And it was just such a random story. Jairus is basically the story of the woman with the bleeding is mixed in there because Jairus is, I'm not saying his name right. He is the leader of a synagogue. So back in the day, leaders of the synagogue, they were Jewish under Roman rule. Think about it. They were hearing, this man is healing people. And think about it. If you knew that you could go to somebody and just be healed, you would go. And that's why Jesus was so swarmed. So he's in the crowd. That woman touches his robe. She stops bleeding. I went back and I decided that I wanted to learn more about this story. So I've gotten a lot from it. But today what I want to share about is how this woman talked about she knew in her body that she was healed. And Jesus knew that healing had gone out from him. And he persisted and was like, who did I heal? And what is so cool is so much of what I talk about with hearing from God is like, I don't hear this audible voice, I just know. And so I looked up that word, and you can look up that word too. I actually have the app Bible Hub. And what you do is you go on Bible Hub, you look up the verse, and then there's little bars, and you, if it's the New Testament, you can hit Greek, and then it'll have the Greek words in that verse, and then you click on it and you can study them more. You don't have to be a Bible scholar, you can just little intuition and read for yourself. And knowing was about this like intellectual, but this also like spiritual knowing. It's also relational with the Lord. And I just thought it was really neat. So I'll share a little bit about, I'll highlight that blurb in here. She just knew in her body. And I thought that that was really neat. And so if people are like, well, how do you know? And you're like, I just know. Well, that's how that woman knew she was healed. She's like, I just know. And I can relate that into my life right now. There's something I was like, I just know it's going to happen. And I had that same experience with my kids. My husband and I, we had the name Benaiah picked out before we were even married. And when I got pregnant, I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a boy. I feel like it's our Benaiah. And everyone's like, nah, you're having a girl. And which was weird. I'm like, I don't care. But then when he came out a boy, I was like, well, of course he's a boy. I knew that. I knew. No, with Cora, I'd always had the name Cornelia picked out after Corrie ten Boom. I love her story. Her name was Corrie, but her full name was Cornelia. So if we had a girl, I knew that I was going to name her Cornelia. That was even when we were praying with Benaiah. But after I had Benaiah, I was in Target and we were shopping and there was this outfit, pink and at a tutu sparkly, and it was in clearance, so it's definitely calling my name, but it said History Maker. And in that moment, I just knew, Anna, you're having Cornelia next. I don't even think I was pregnant yet, but I knew that I have a girl. So when I was pregnant, I was like, it's a girl. I just know it is. It's Cornelia. God gave us the name, and that's how I just knew. And then I would tell people, I know it's a girl, and they'd be like, no. So we found out with the ultrasound, me and my husband, and when we found out, I was like, I knew. So then, long story short, the name Lydia just kept getting pressed upon me. I would like randomly read on the same time that I was thinking about our next baby or a baby name. I would just read Lydia, and I just knew. And one time within that season, I went to church, and there was like church trivia, and one of the names was Lydia, and just stuff like that. And then every time I say, I was like, I'm having a Lydia. So next time we got pregnant, I actually didn't find out, and I was like, I'm just going to walk in faith, though, because the other two times, I was like, I don't know, let's get checked. I was like, no, I walk by faith, not by sight. I have faith that we're having this Lydia. So we didn't get checked. Everybody was like, what do you have? He was like, a girl. They're like, oh, you found out? I was like, no, I just knew. And it was so exhausting explaining to people how I knew. But then, long story short, is when she came out, and I've had all natural births, no drugs. So by the time you get done pushing, you felt it all. And I was exhausted. And what is it? A girl. It's a girl's like, I knew it. And it's awesome. I was like, God, I want to be surprised. And she's my Lydia D. Faith. And Faith had another meaning in her life as well. And then Eleazar's name. Michael always wanted to name another boy Eleazar. And he, after David's mighty men. And so we had Benaiah, and he wanted to name Eleazar. It wasn't necessarily my first choice. How I knew we were actually having Eleazar. I was listening to a podcast on discipleship. Just that morning, I was thinking about our baby. And all of a sudden, I click on it. And the story's about Eleazar, the priest in discipleship. Random. I don't even know what it said. I was like, holy cow. And then at the time we had Focus on the Family, we had a story. And the story was about Lazarus, who was brought back from the dead in Jesus' time. But little did we know, and probably you know, that the Greek or Hebrew, whatever, actual name for Lazarus is Eleazar. And so it would just be like all of a sudden we're listening to the story, and all of a sudden Eleazar's name pops up. So it's just like some wild stuff like that. I just knew we're having Eleazar. We did actually find out with Eleazar, we did a genetic test, and sure enough, a boy. But I just knew. So I'm curious, do you have those things in your life that you've just known and other people don't believe you and they call you skeptical? And you know what? I'm sure that woman's like, I'm healed. And people were probably like, for now, but watch, it'll come back. She's like, no, it's never coming back. I just know. So it's cool that God can give us that faith, those things from just knowing. And that's called when our brain meets our spirit, because we're not just physical beings. We're not just spiritual beings. It's our mind, body, and strength. So I hope that blesses you. Fun stories about knowing. Share with me things that you've just known. DM me if it's personal, but love to hear them. Bye.